You have the greatest fighter of all time at 205 moving up for the first time to fight this monster, Francis Ngannou. Chael, I love everything about the fight. Here's what I don't like about the situation right now. Clearly, Jon Jones wants to get paid a lot more for this fight. He tweeted on Wednesday that if they offer him 8 to 10 million for this fight, he said, his words, that that's too low. Now, historically, the UFC isn't offering you north of 10 million for any kind of fight. That's just not the way they do business. Oh, by the way, speaking of not the way they do business, they don't like to do business when you publicly negotiate. I think Jon has learned that by now. And so I think some people are reading the tweets and they're reading the tea leaves and saying, all right, Jon is saying that he wants to take this fight, but look at everything he's doing to not take this fight. Oh, he is afraid. I didn't like what Dana White said at the press conference. Jon moving down to 185. Jon doesn't want this fight. You know, like you could say you want the fight, but you're not really saying you want the fight. No, Jon Jones is not afraid of Francis Ngannou. He just kind of realizes where he's at in his career, and he wants to get paid a handsome amount of money to move up and fight a guy like Francis Ngannou. By the way, don't forget, he relinquished his title not that long ago because he knew he was going to fight either Stipe or Francis. This isn't a surprise. But Chael, I don't like the direction this is moving. I don't like the public negotiations. I don't like the comments from Dana White. I don't like what Jon Jones is writing. They need to all be quiet, sit in a room, figure this out, because it would be a travesty, Chael, with a capital T, if they let this fight slip through.
And Ariel, I disagree. I mean, I'm looking at this. Jon Jones has had 6 months of promotion, and the best promotion you can have, which is speculative, is Jon moving to the heavyweight class. Will Jon move right into a title fight? If he does both of those things, will it be against Stipe or will it be against Francis? Look, I realize this is a big fight. I'm just talking about the spot this fight is in right now versus the fight that should be happening, which is Francis versus Derek Lewis. Jon's got him beat by an inch, and that's with 6 months of promoting. I only share with you, when Jon comes out, we've got to take him at his word. He said, I'm walking away from 205. He did it. We needed to take him at his word. We resisted. We saw it turned out to be true. He said, I'm going to get big. I'm going to move into this weight class. But he's now said, give Derek Lewis the fight. A couple of days later, he says, release me, I don't even want to be here. Now, I share that with you because as you're getting the allure that so many people fall for, the poster one-time Jones versus Ngannou, oh my goodness, this is great. Ariel, I could name 3 fights for you for Francis right now that would make your mouth salivate and you'd mark on your calendar so you didn't miss it. You count down the days. I cannot do that for Jon Jones. He simply does not have that in the heavyweight class, and people are trying to get Jon to go do something he doesn't want to do because they believe that Jon's going to get beat. Vegas has already come out with the odds for this, and it represents the first time that Jon Jones has been an underdog. So people want to see Jon lose, and they're trying to goad him into this. I think it's very mature and responsible for Dana to simply say, he says he wants to do it, but he doesn't. He's going to price himself out, and we're going to look somewhere else. For me, that's above board, and they should be looking somewhere else. They should be looking at Derek Lewis, the last man to beat Francis Ngannou.
Are you literally going to sit there with a straight face and tell me that Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou 2, a rematch, by the way, of one of the worst fights in UFC history, a fight that you have actually called one of the worst fights in UFC history, is just as intriguing or maybe a small notch below in terms of intrigue? Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight? Chael, come on, you've said a lot of crazy things. This might be the craziest. What are the other fights? Curtis Blaydes versus Francis Ngannou? What are the other fights? Ciryl Gane versus Francis Ngannou? Have you lost your mind? Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight is one of the biggest, most lucrative fights in the history of this sport. What are you talking about? This is crazy. What are you talking
That's a
about
very
right
short,
now, Chael? This is
excuse
absolutely
me,
absurd.
Excuse me, that's a very short term. I would love to answer. My mouth moves, your mouth goes closed, okay, partner? Just remember how this works. Now, I want to tell you, though, when you're talking about it's a really big play, that's a checkers move. Yes, you're going to have one very good night. What I'm suggesting is it's not all that much bigger of a night than Derek versus Francis. Jon's had a 6-month head start on promotion on it, and these guys are kind of neck and neck. And by the way, I would talk about Stipe getting there for a rubber match with Francis. I would talk about Derek Lewis getting in there to try to take a championship off a guy that he's already beaten in Francis. And I would talk to you, of course, about Jon Jones and Francis. But I would love to hear what you have to say back to me in terms of Jon Jones. You're going to bring a guy in on a one-off? I mean, don't forget, the reason that we couldn't make and never did make 3-piece and a soda, Leon and Masvidal, that couldn't be made because it would be rewarding bad behavior, thus making other people get into street altercations and make sure that there's a camera handy so you could go get a big fight. I only suggest that to you because If you're going to give in to Jon Jones and this level of ridiculousness, saying release, you want to be released from an organization, and now we're going to make you champion of said organization? Come on, Ariel. This is problematic, and this shouldn't come down to money. Shame on you for talking about the money. This should come down to straight competition. Jon has made it very clear he doesn't want this fight.
Stop it.
He's also made it clear that he will.
Stop it.
Now, excuse me. He's made it clear. Excuse me. I got to finish the thought before you disagree with it. He's made it very clear he does not want this fight. He's also made it very clear that he will do the fight. Not wanting to fight and not willing to do it are two separate things. I'm saying let's give it to somebody who wants it. Oh, by the way, a fellow heavyweight. Oh, by the way, the guy that beat your champion most recently, Derek Lewis.
Okay, so then why did he vacate his title? He knew he was fighting either Stipe or Francis. You're telling me he doesn't want the fight, yet he vacated his title, Chael? This is boxing. Boxing doesn't make these fights. The UFC historically makes these fights. You're crazy if you're telling me right now that Jon Jones moving. You know what I would have done if I was the president of the UFC? I would have sat at that table on Saturday and said, guess what, everyone? I have the biggest fight in the history of this promotion at my fingertips. I have Jon Jones, undefeated, the greatest champion this promotion has ever had, moving up to heavyweight. No one wants to fight Francis Ngannou, and he is actually volunteering to fight this monster. And Francis Ngannou is a new champion. He's the second coming of Mike Tyson. I have a $2 million buy pay-per-view.
What?
That's what this pay-per-view does. Not even close to what those other fights do. You've lost your mind. You've absolutely lost your mind. This is the craziest thing you've ever said on this program. This is a massive fight.
Excuse me. Dana White said when he was asked if he would make this fight, yes. He simply said yes, and he said, if John's serious, call Hunter Campbell. Jon tweets out how that conversation with Hunter went, and he priced himself out of the market. You're telling me that he wants to do it? Everybody's in agreement here except for Jon Jones, and there you are yelling through a blowhorn how bad he wants it. If he wants it, Dana said he can have it. He said he can have it.
It's got to make dollars and cents for Jon. Look, I said it myself. I don't like the way he's going about it. I don't think it's smart to publicly negotiate. I'm agreeing with you on that point. But let's not kid ourselves. It's a massive fight, Chael.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.